Please join me in praying that I don't say something we all regret. These are dangerous times. Mr. President, are you sure about this?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Indigenous Nightmare Network. This is a Patreon exclusive. A clip will be visible as you are probably watching this on YouTube, available as soon as we are done recording this. Today is June 10th, Monday, 2024. And today's conversation is going to be a book reading and kind of an overall analysis, what me and Ryan, my co-host from Decolonial Parallels, kind of like what we're thinking in the midst of reading this book. This book is National Security Cinema. Let me go to the front of the page. National Security Cinema: The Shocking New Evidence of Government Control in Hollywood by Matthew Alford and Tom Secker. I have reached out, Ryan. I forgot to tell you this, but I reached out to these individuals in hopes that I could, we could have a conversation with them regarding the book that they wrote. I believe it was in 2017. The book was created, and these individuals created this book basically to outline how Western imperialism via the Department of Justice, also known as the Pentagon, have infiltrated it, through Hollywood, and have implemented fascistic narratives, have changed scripts to, in some part, not make it seem like they're imperialistic or they're militarized, but wanting, recognition of the military, and to justify
or to individualize the negative aspects of government while collectivizing its positive traits.
Yes, you said it. You said it better than me. So we're gonna start with the preface today, and we're gonna go as long as we possibly can, into this, giving our analysis. And so I will start the conversation, or at least the reading, and then we will have a conversation. I'll probably stop. I'll stop at page. Let's see. I'll stop at page 8, and then we can have a discussion. That sound good?
Sounds good. Let's go.
All right. It says right here, and I hope you guys can see. I hope this is visible for everybody as well. I do apologize if it isn't. This is the largest that I could get it for everybody to be able to read at least 2 pages, see 2 pages at once. So the content of the film and television is directly, regularly, and secretly determined by U.S. government led by the CIA and the Pentagon. More visible since 1980s is what we identify as a distinct genre, national security cinema, namely those films that follow self-serving official histories and exult in the righteousness of U.S. foreign policy. And yet the reality of a slick and extensive military PR machine in the entertainment industry only became apparent to us as long-standing researchers in the field quite recently. When we first looked at the relationship between politics and motion pictures around the turn of the 21st century, we accepted the consensus opinion that a small office at the Pentagon had assisted the production of around 200 films throughout the history of modern media. How ignorant were we? More appropriately, how misled we had been by those who sought to plug the leak of censored scripts or discussions about them, as well as we shall see. It gradually became apparent to us that the relationship between the U.S. government and Hollywood is, or rather always was, more political than acknowledged. The files we have received through the Freedom of Information Act indicate that between 1911 and 2017, 814 films, received DOD support. Wow. I gotta stop there.
Yeah, no, I think it speaks to the level of propaganda that we have been ingesting the entirety of our lives, right? And not with that knowledge. Like we understand that there's probably some kind of relationship there, but the depth of the relationship is the part that's pretty blistering to read and to acknowledge, because we're supposed to be the freest country on the planet, right? And we're supposed to be able to tell whatever stories we want to, yada yada yada. But it turns out, like most other things in our lives, it's all been bullshit, basically, right?
Yeah. And what it had, again, proper, this is mass manipulation through
Yes.
media.
There's a reason why every other fucking show is a cop show and a fucking procedural, man. Like, that's not an accident. And it's not just because that's what people watch. It's because that's what they feed people. And you get a diet of that shit, and it gets hard not to, like, keep going, because it's like fucking potato chips, right? It's just comfortable, and you don't even realize what's going on, and all of a sudden, you've watched fucking, like, Law and Order for half your life.
All right, like most of us have watched almost every episode of SVU.
Yeah.
Just trying to justify the upholding police departments, because they go and they, quote unquote, in this show, find the bad guy every single time, when if you look at in reality, that's never the case. It takes sometimes years, and sometimes it never happens, people finding their rapist, or justice even being served for stuff like that, for sexual assault. Special victims unit, as they call it. Trying to justify the police department upholding these values of white supremacy, white hegemony, whichever word you use, and also upholding the aesthetics of of the state.
Well, like, my wife loves those Datelines and shit like that, right? And so we watch, like, Datelines 2020s. We watch all those things together, and the thing that, like, stands out to me, like, almost every single fucking time, is that it turns out that the cops, if they aren't actively involved in pushing the thing in another direction, they are somehow irresponsible with evidence, or lacking in desire to go harass witnesses or whatever. And ends up, what happens is that the families end up doing all the fucking heavy lifting themselves. And if it wasn't for the families going out and deciding to do all this fucking legwork for themselves, their family or their loved ones would never see justice, right? Almost exclusively, this is how it goes down. And it's crazy, because that's the exact opposite of how we are told that shit works, right? Through these TV shows and through, these movies. They're all like, no, man, the cops are going to do it. The cops are going to save the day. The cops are going to figure it out. The cops are going to stop the bad guy. All you got to do is just sit back and relax, when the opposite is true, actually. If you want to get justice for your family, you've got to go out and make it fucking happen, or it's not going to happen.
Yeah, no, again, the fact that they, between 1911 and 2017, the department of received over 814 films. That is wild. That is wild to know that for year, almost
the entirety of Hollywood.
The entirety of Hollywood has since its creation. And there's also other books that we potentially could get into as well when we're done reading this. Like Dr. Horn has a book on Hollywood that's getting ready. I believe it's already out. That I'd love to indulge in.
I also would really like to read that.
So that's one book that we're going to be working on pretty soon as well. This is a part of the Patreon, and so if you guys like this type of content, then feel free on YouTube, as this will be a part of a clip. Feel free in the comments to jot down potential books that you want us to read, and that maybe we can get our hands on and, start that, and maybe you guys can join. We can make it a book club of some sort. This is fully educational. And this, for me is just something I do on the side, in hopes that, I can get, you guys, you guys like this type of content. So that's basically what I was trying to get at. So let me stop talking and get back to reading. If we include the 1,133 TV titles in our count, the number of screen entertainment products supported by the DoD leaps to almost 1,947. If we are to include the individual episodes for each title on long-running shows like 24, Homeland, NCIS, all, and as well as the influence of other major organizations like FBI, CIA, the White House, then it becomes clear that the national security state has supported thousands of products. National security entertainment promotes violent, self-regarding American-centric solutions to international problems based on twist reading in history. Let's go over that again. National security entertainment promotes violent, self-regarding American-centric solutions to international problems based on twist readings in history, which goes to show you that when they use shows to propagate, and promote the quote unquote, that
the good guy, bad guy.
Yeah, the good guy, bad guy trope, but at the same time, solutions to international problems based on twist readings in history. That is a direct example of what's going on in Gaza right now. Is the fact that they're using shows to try and manipulate people into this is a legitimate state, when no, it's an occupational force. A show just recently, and I'm glad that I said it to you, because you said that you and your son were getting ready to watch it. Knuckles. Right. Heavily has IDF propaganda in it. The first 15 minutes of it.
Right.
And when I watched it, I completely tuned out. I'm not going to watch a show that's like that, and I'm not going to allow any people, that I know, to watch that. I'm going to let them know, hey, that's some fascist ass shit that they're trying to, propagate, promote.
Yeah, which I appreciate, because I've got no interest in subjective.
Yeah, that's you're a kid in general. They want to talk about drags, putting and enforcing sexuality onto children. Well, how about forcing militarization onto children?
Right.
Which is the real problem, because kids aren't being sexualized from going and watching a drag show. Sorry, that's not what's going on, and that's not what's happening. If anything, they're being educated. That's what's going on, and they're being
being sexualized by beer commercials, and and busty TV shows, and
video games that promote sexualization.
And the idea that we exist in a culture to where if a woman and a man are friends, that they have to want to sleep together. That's the only reason that they're friends, and that when women and men have relationships, that's what those relationships are for, right? They're always about trying to get each other into bed. And that's what we grew up on. We grew up on remember the baseball movie,
Angels in the Outfield.
No, the little kids,
Little Giants.
No, it's a baseball one. The
Sandlot.
Yard.
Sandlot.
The Sandlot, yes. But remember, there's the one kid that goes and basically coerces
he's the one who never gets seen again, right? Is that the one that you're talking about?
Yeah, no, the one that coerces the lifeguard, Linda Peppercorn, into making out with him, right?
Yeah.
He goes and he fakes drowning so that she'll save him and make out with him. And we're supposed to look at that it's oh man, good one, good for you. But
it's promoting child fucking, sex with. And what's crazy is he ends up marrying her at the end. They have fucking a bunch of children.
Right. So they're really if you do this pervy shit, it'll work. So don't feel bad about going out and doing the most pervy thing you can think of at 10, you know, it'll get you a wife and kids. You know,
Yeah.
and it,
Promoting bad behavior. Yeah.
yeah.
But
So
not just
it
bad
just,
behavior, but aesthetics of white hegemony, you know?
yes.
Um, so yeah, no, I think that this quote right here,
Mhm.
it just really spoke to me when they said that in this preface. I don't know if these were the writers that wrote this preface or if this was someone else that wrote this. It didn't list a specific person, so I'll just have to go with the
They
writers.
they write it as if it's them because they keep uh, saying
Okay.
we throughout the
Okay.
preface. So my assumption would be that they did in fact write this.
Okay. Would you like to take over for reading? I don't know if
Sure.
I didn't put that on the table in the beginning. I
No,
apologize.
no, that's fine. However, even those products that don't meet such a lamentable yardstick are still to some degree designed to recruit personnel and, in doing so, must adhere to the desired self-image of the national security state. Furthermore, we found that the government has been the decisive factor in both the creation and termination of projects and has manipulated content in much more serious ways than has ever been known. We also ask a critical question, though. If the entertainment industry is essentially trapped in a kind of ideological straitjacket, as our books and articles have increasingly suggested, how can we account for the release of what appear to be genuinely subversive products by directors like Paul Verhoeven, Oliver Stone, and Michael Moore? Our answer, we think, will confound critics who consider, for example, that Hollywood is biased toward left-wing liberalism. First, though, let's get back to the scale of the national security state's operation in Hollywood. Okay, so that takes us to the beginning of
Yeah.
the first chapter, right? So let's talk about that because like there's a lot to be said there about. That's always the trope, right? Is that Hollywood is liberal. Um, Hollywood is liberal. Our news media is liberal. When what they mean is diverse and like, you know what I mean? And so this is all just another way where that's complete horseshit because they lock you into this box
Yeah.
of conservative and liberalism, right? And so to think that liberals are in any way left wing, you have to, you know, be willing to accept that the box is all there is, right?
Yeah.
And once you understand that the box has nothing to do with, and in fact, that box is a very small box on a much bigger map, right? Um, in which liberalism has nothing to do with left wing politics, right?
Yeah.
And so all of these discussions that they have within colonialism and capitalism are all stuck within that box, the colonial
Mhm.
capitalist box, with all the assumptions baked into that.
And to kind of get to where me and you are on this understanding, I don't know if you've read Mao's on liberalism, but I have.
Yes,
So I have a very,
yes,
very a good understanding of where you're coming at. So for individuals that haven't read Mao's on liberalism, I will put a link in the description to an audiobook that I'm hoping that is still available. I know that these guys were producing a lot of content, reading books like on Mao and Ho Chi Minh. And so I compounded on, those their audiobooks helped me read the paperbacks that I had.
right, right, right,
So
right,
it
right.
was like, that's how I read. So I'll put down in the link in the description.
When
Mao
if they
Zedong,
can read the PDF,
audio.
if they choose reading as their mode of knowledge
Yeah.
gathering, then they can go to Marxist.com, right? Don't they
Yeah,
all
and
have
you can
all
actually
the
they
PDFs?
have Yeah, and they have a shit ton there. Or
Yeah,
you can go to libgen.is and type in on liberalism, and it'll pop up. I'm actually going to be doing a tutorial for people because I quote that website a lot, and it's a useful resource for finding,
right.
any type of book that is left wing, left leaning, Pan Africanist, decolonial.
Yeah,
So
like
and I
real left wing shit, not
like not
not fucking
you know
Hollywood
yeah,
version of left wing, which is just
exactly.
like we have a token black guy involved, or we have we have one gay character, Like, holy shit, this is fucking completely subversive material. Like, no, it's not. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like, that's not, like, we've talked about that many times, right? That, like, forced diversity is not in and of itself subversive in any way, or even progressive, and can be used as a way to tell the most regressive type of stories out there, actually. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I will take over the reading, and then we'll stop at a point. I don't know why I said we're gonna stop at a certain page at the beginning, because I'm
Right.
like, yeah, that was some bullshit. Like, there's gonna be bangers throughout this whole chapter. So some of the stuff I highlighted in my own personal book, so I don't have them highlighted here. So I'm just gonna roll with the punches. It says right here, the Pentagon, the strong arm in Hollywood. For over a century, filmmakers in America have received production assistance in the form of men at advice, locations, and equipment from the U.S. military to cut costs and create authentic seeming films. The Pentagon is and has been since its creation the most important governmental force in shaping Hollywood. Again, let's go over that.
Right.
For a century, filmmakers in America have received production assistance in the form of men, so that means people, in the form of actual fucking bodies, uh, advice, location. So that means bases where they film things and whatnot, equipment, the trucks and hangars and
Right.
guns and whatnot, all the artillery, the uniforms, from the U.S. military to cut costs and also create what they call authentic seeming films. So I would have to push back on the authentic seeming, because some of these films are not rooted in authenticity. Because in order to have authenticity, you have to tell the truth, and these
Right.
films distort the truth.
Yes.
So that's not something that they're wrong on. I'm just saying it's not authentic, simply because in order for a film to be authentic, it has to be rooted in truth.
Right. Well, I think
Um,
that's why I think that's why they added seeming, because I think their point is
yeah,
that
exactly, exactly, yeah,
these movies are meant to be authentic, right? We're meant to view them on those terms because they have like official logos, and they have official like equipment, and they have official outfits. So they're like, okay, this is like really how it works there, but it's not. It's a complete fabrication based on, the face that the Pentagon wants to put out there to the world.
yeah. Their
Right.
version of authenticity, their create false creation, false narrative of it is, like, I guess we could say.
Yeah.
One of the earliest examples of Hollywood's military cooperation was when the Home Guard provided tanks for the infamous feature film Birth of a Nation, 1915, in which black slaves revolted against their masters before the Ku Klux Klan ride on horsebacks to save the day. This was severe race hate propaganda, which came with government backing.
Let's hang on there for a second,
Yeah,
because like, let's just sit with that for a minute. Severe race hate propaganda with government backing. So like, the idea that we talk about all the time about how like you can't change the system because all of the most brutal aspects of our social like structure is baked into the cake of fucking of the United States government.
yeah,
It's baked right in there, and it's always fucking been there. And so we're never going to be able to get out of this mess by participating in the system. Like, it's just not going to happen. Like, we
yeah.
might be able to make the system a little bit nicer on the fucking fringes, but we're never going to get liberation or justice or any of those words from this system. It's just not going to happen.
No, it's not. It's not non-feasible, as Kwame Ture would emphasize. This is a backward system,
Right.
which
Yes.
means everything that we do that we think is to help make it better is really making it we're going more backward. We're more backwards because we're not addressing the primary contradictions that this is a
Right.
settler
Even the
colonial
things
state.
that people are doing to help are all they're really doing is reinforcing the system itself.
Exactly. There is a book that I'm not going to name the name, but I think I might have to do a book review on it simply because there's a lot of things that are missing. There's a lot of indigenous thought and theory that is missing, and it's simply missing because it's wanting to uphold the values of this system of its creation, and also to uphold, in my opinion, worker proletariats that shouldn't exist on indigenous lands to begin with. And that's another question and another book review for another day.
Absolutely.
It says right here, it was the following Second World War, with the founding of the Pentagon in 1947, that the U.S. military formalized its operations in Hollywood. In 1948, it set up entertainment liaison offices, ELOs, under the authority of Donald Barbaric. Phil Strub took over in 1989. If the DoD deems that script changes need to be made for it to authorize support, then the producers must adhere to these requests and sign a production assistant agreement. See Appendix D. A technical advisor ensures that the agreed upon script is the one that is actually used when shooting. The DoD requires a post-production viewing to certify that there is nothing in the film that contravenes the agreement, and may have further suggestions at this stage where cooperation is more limited. The written agreement may be unnecessary.
So let's hold on. Let's stop again for a second.
I was going to say, let's.
What they're fucking saying right there is that the technical advisor is basically just like the strongman, right?
He's basically there to say, hey,
the implicit threat. You guys
labeled us you labeled America fascist in some semblance without saying it. We're going to need you to rewrite this, or you didn't have us smile. Like, we're not having a smile here. So we want you to put us as smiling. And in order for you to get what you want from us, you're gonna have to change every bit of, if there's too many frown faces, so I need all these I need all these smiles to be implemented, like minor shit like that. Or even then, so like them not wanting to, and this is later on in the book, but them not wanting certain things to be labeled this way, like we don't want this in this experimental lab to be connected to the military, so we want you to change it and say that it is operated by a private entity that has nothing to do with the Department of Justice or the military, the U.S. Army, or any of its branches of any of the occupational branches of the military here. And so doing things like that, and then like how you said, strong arming them by saying, okay, well, if you don't do this, then we're going to take the core of your movie, which we've already made centered around militarization. We're going to take it all out. We're like, you can't make a movie without the trucks. You can't make this movie without the tanks. You can't make this movie without the hangars, the bases, or even the clearance to go to private fucking sectors of national parks that they stole from indigenous communities to go and blow up fucking mountainsides and shit. For special effects.
So they can do so they can remake actual
explosions,
nuclear explosions instead of fucking just CGI and this shit.
Exactly.
Looking at you, Oppenheimer. Looking at you.
Looking at you, Oppenheimer. Right?
Fucking Nolan, dickhead.
Says the official documentation trail of the DoD scripts dries up around the year 2004. Vast amounts of annotated scripts and DoD Hollywood correspondence had been either taken or donated to a single historian. Lawrence Sood from 1976 to 2005, possibly beyond. Sood continues to keep his material in a private archive in a public library in Georgetown, Washington, D.C., and his apparent unwillingness to share the material represents a substantial and unnecessary loss to the research community. So this dude.
So they found a way around FISA, right? They found a way around all of that. They found a way around being transparent, and they did that by being transparent with one person and then letting him
saying,
lock
hey,
that
we're
shit the fuck up.
yeah, and saying, hey, we're transparent. You know,
Yeah.
it's
We
not
did
our
our
fault.
part.
It's not our fault. This one journalist or this one investigator
Historian.
doesn't want to, historian doesn't want to, give up, any of the, juiciness of our fucking, due diligence and undue diligence.
Yeah, of our fucking collabs with Hollywood.
That's wild.
But I also so the thing, because I'd like to go back to the technical advisor thing for a bit, because it's like the Always Sunny Dennis implication, right? Because it's the implication, like he's standing there, or she's standing there, or they're standing there, and they're looking, and so if the director, if the producer, if the writer know that motherfucker is there, that goes into how they do their jobs, right? If he or she or they is on the fucking set every single day, then that is how the director, the producer, the actors, they will all operate under that implication that dude's watching, or they are watching.
Yeah,
literally they are watching.
Yeah, we gotta watch. We gotta be very, very, concise and very.
Right.
We have to move. We have to maneuver in ways
better
that you couldn't,
it's
when
better to
making
play it
films.
safe, right? Like
Yeah.
it's better to play it safe and not, really attack the more interesting aspects or the more inflammatory to the government's aspects, but downplay those and go ahead and make sure our shoot gets shot. Because we got a lot of people out here fucking whose paychecks depend on it, right?
Yeah. So we don't want to hold that up. And again, that goes back. That's conformity. That's
Correct.
Instead of taking a stance and saying, "Hey, fuck you, we're not making this movie," so that you in part get the shine. You in part then trying to justify these awful fucking means and aesthetics to white hegemony, and exploitation, and are used as facets for exploitation. We're not doing it anymore, and that goes back to conformity. They're complicit simply because Hollywood in of it itself is a DOD creation.
Yes.
They took exactly what Germans were doing. And what's crazy is one of the first heads.
The Germans took what we were doing. Let's not get it twisted. It's not backward, or it's backwards to say that we took what the Germans were doing, because the Germans took what we were doing, right? The Germans based almost all of their propaganda work, all of their worst aspects of the Holocaust, they took from America's treatment of the indigenous, right?
Yeah.
And from the way that the American government propagandized its own citizens into accepting it, into accepting Jim Crow, into accepting all those things as progressive, right?
Well, I was saying the fascist propaganda, like movies that were always played.
Yeah, but see that I'm pushing back, because like A Birth of a Nation happened first.
Yeah.
And A Birth of the Nation was the fucking driving force behind most of fascist propaganda, right? Like they saw what the US government was able to do with Birth of a Nation and went, okay, cool, we can do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get you. I guess. But what I was trying to say initially is that some of the individuals that were heads of were SSR heads, were right-hand mans to Hitler, one of them ended up being the head of CBS. So it was directly put in a position through government,
Right.
To make decisions on how we consume media and what said media is to be consumed. And so that's the point that I was trying to get at. As much as I was trying to make that connection to films and whatnot, I was really trying to make the connection to our society and of it itself, from the backings of quote unquote winning World War II, and all we did was drop 2 fucking bombs on innocent fucking countries, or innocent regions within a country.
And that's not including what we did to fucking Dresden and places like that.
Yeah, exactly. And what we did was it was a fight to acquire the intellect that Germany had, the whether it be the militarized technology, I mean, whether it be the automotive technology, the reason why we have Volkswagen, which is the people's car, was a construct by Hitler. It was a construct of Hitler's regime. It was for them to get rid and to rid away of what they at the time were saying, what they were using terms like for like Japanese automakers and stuff like that, derogatory terms, you know, we're trying to evade from anything other than their own creations. And so they created Volkswagen, which is the people's car. And so they're constructs like that, constructs like NATO, the first head of NATO, state of NATO, was a Nazi. You know, I talked about this like a couple years ago in Twitter Spaces, and you know, argued about it. You know, was you know, proud enough to be a part of Twitter Spaces that, you know, gave basic history lessons as teachers, and as literal teachers. We would have set schedules and we would do things, have certain topics that we would have, and then we would have Q&A and have debates with, you know, sometimes reactionary fucking fascists, sometimes people that were actual Nazis, some, you know, and we would debunk their shit, you know, on live, you know, and put them on blast. And in the midst of that, in real time, and in the midst of that, we were able to help people with like mutual aid. We were able to help people, like it was a I'm hoping that I can translate this onto Twitter Spaces again, doing these book reviews and just getting people involved, you know, on a level that, you know, gets people interested, educated, and also get some potential help that they might need if someone has the means to do it. So which are forms of mutual aid. So all three. You know, but yeah, did you want to take over the reading? I know I kind of, you know, went on a little
no, sure. Let me put my glasses back on because I'm old and can't see. Okay, so in the early 2000s, the Los Angeles-based journalist David Robb temporarily gained access to Sued's collection and published the explosive 2004 book Operation Hollywood: How the Pentagon Shapes and Censors the Movies. Since Robb's archival raid, we know of no researcher who has been granted access to Sued's collection, with the exception of Texas Christian University professor Trisha Jenkins, who asked for access but was offered just a pitiful handful of material from the early Vietnam War era. Under such conditions, Jenkins was unable to complete the article she was working on, and instead collaborated on an early draft of a 2016 paper with Matthew Alford. That established how Sued has, despite his impressive marshaling of data, in some ways choked this field of study. The DoD's post.
Hold on. Well, I'd like to read that, because the fact that they have over time, and I've even not looked into this, you know, these accounts and whatnot, but when I was doing my research on the writers of the show with the hell of the book, I came across exactly what he was talking about, is that it stops like at 20 when their book comes out. There's no other conversation regarding national security cinema, regarding how it's mass manipulated. Anything, the narrative is now changed to, we want more of these types of movies. We want more of which is what we're getting. We're getting movies that are based and riddled in, you know, eugenics, you know, based stories, riddled in, I mean, that a show that we could probably review on Decolonial Parallels, Foundation, the series. I don't know if you watched it, but that show irritates the fucking shit out of me. I love the graphics. And that's one thing I'll never knock about the show, is the visual effects of it, but it's the content of which that they use to tell these stories is so fucking settler minded and based in just imperial galactic. It's all, instead of it now being stories of kingdoms here and all these backstories that they potentially could truthfully tell and whatnot, they're now going into, okay, well, we're going to try and justify settler colonialism via the means of these galactic empires and say that, you know, people are prosperous and whatnot. But no, I did
But
when I was
not
doing,
just that people are prosperous, because that's not really the point of foundation. Is the point of foundation is that all empires fall, which is actually, you know, an intriguing story in and of itself. When Asimov told him back in the 50s, you know, the version on TV, we can argue back and forth as to whether or not it upholds the true ideas that Asimov was trying to impart in his stories. Like, you know, whether or not that's the case is you know, up for debate. But the point is that, like, we talked about this during the Dune, our Dune conversation.
yeah,
Is that we can imagine these planetary galactic empires, right? But they're empires. Like, we can't imagine ourselves outside of the context of hierarchy, right?
yeah.
And settler colonialism, because that's a big part of it too, is that, like, their need to dominate these in this case planets, you know.
Well, it's also trying to justify that this is the only means to getting a society, to propelling a society, is that you have to go through these stages. We have to have settler colonialism, and then we get to this stage, and then we get to this stage, and then we get to this stage, and all it is doing is just justifying aesthetics again, a white hegemony, you know, and
Right.
trying to usher in that that these things are okay, these actions are okay, to create a famine is okay, to obliterate a fucking planet is okay. The Star Kit, like literally the Star Killer, you know, like all of these, like all of these movies that reference, or like how in Foundation they literally obliterated a whole planet, if I'm not mistaken, correct? Like, you know, it
Yes.
was like in the first season, you know, and it was all because of one person, if I'm not mistaken, doing something. So now in part the
Well, no, it was
whole
because of a
planet,
terrorist action on their version of Coruscant.
yeah, yeah, their
So,
version of
like,
yeah,
yeah, on their version, because I can't remember what the home planet of the Galactic Empire in Foundation is called, but there's a terrorist act by one of the Outer Rim planets on on the global empire, the home of global empire. And so they go out and they destroy that entire, or not, they don't destroy the planet, but they basically destroy the planet, right? They
yeah,
go and bomb the shit out of the planet in a way that they're bombing the shit out of Gaza right now, right?
yeah,
And they just lay waste to the place to let them know that they're not going to accept terrorism, when the terrorism was in
is them,
response to famine, right?
yeah,
And so the people that committed the act of terror were doing so in response to the empire's treatment of their planet for centuries.
yeah. Yeah, no. And it again, it goes back to they're using these stories to try and justify these means and these ideas of quote unquote society. And we talked before we were recording, you know, in order for, you know, society in of itself is just a white man's term as well, just like civility, whatnot. But the root basis of even society, it has togetherness in it, and you can't have a society, you can't call yourself a society when you have laws, principles, legislations that directly exclude certain individuals and have over time excluded individuals. So it's not a society, it's an occupation. So this is why
Right.
vocab comes in it needs to come in at a time period like such, simply because we don't need these false narratives to be portrayed anymore. We don't need individuals to think that this is a society that is actively being a part of a genocide. That doesn't, from a from a linguist perspective, that just doesn't match. That doesn't,
Right.
it doesn't
When
mix, you know.
I would argue that we are also trying to get people to understand that you can't call yourself a revolutionary if you're still trying to hold up some of these aesthetics. So, like, if your idea of revolution still involves the United States in any form or fashion, you're not really a revolutionary, not in the truest sense, because you can't have a revolution and the United States exist in any way, shape, or form, right? Even if it's a socialist one.
Yeah, yeah. um all right, I don't know if you wanted to keep these relatively to an hour,
I think that's probably smart.
So that way we can we'll read as much as we can with the 15 minutes that we have left, and then we'll set a marker for the next time that we will be back on. So we'll be doing this every week. These will be posted. A clip will be posted on YouTube, and the full linked episode will be available on the Patreon, which will be listed below when I'm done with the editing stuff as well. So yeah, let's go here. Says the Department of Defense post 2004 papers on Hollywood cooperation acquired primarily by the authors via the FOIA do not contain any annotated scripts, and there's very little by way of correspondence and scripts notes. Almost all the officially available material is anodyne diary-like entries, which simply log the ongoing activities of the ELO. We have analyzed what little relevant documentation is available, along with the draft scripts, leaks, interviews, and other sources to trace the Pentagon's 21st century influence over movie content. What does the DoD want? Department of Defense want to avoid revealing the public? Read on. It says right here, the key to production on a large proportion of film and TV products, the DoD support is not decisive to content or tone. Most products would be made without its involvement. However, there are numerous high profile examples like Top Gun, the Battleship 2012, which are so dependent on the Pentagon that it is inconceivable that they would exist without its assistance. The film Act of Valor 2012 even made bunch of its use of real life Marines as lead actors, while filmmakers usually have to submit drafts of their screenplays to the military along with their requests for support. The DoD waived these rules for Michael Bay's Transformers. In exchange, in exchange for very early influence over the scripts, the Transformers producers secured more military assistance than any other franchise in movie history. We've obtained production assistance agreement. We attained assistance agreement for the second and third Transformers films that show that the screenplays were not even finished by the time that these contracts were signed. So they had already. Go ahead.
Well, Michael Bay's basically a whore for the Pentagon anyway. Yeah. Like, let's not kid ourselves, man. His movies are drenched in Americanism, like, you know, and it's like, or USAism. Let's put it there. But yeah, so this isn't a surprise, really. I think it helps to, you know, really show the level, but also like what I was saying earlier about how most of these guys, you know, don't really need to be coerced into making military propaganda, right? Like, Michael Bay wants to. He's dying to. Like, please let me blow shit up with American flag behind it. Like, I want to do that for you. So...
says right here, reports from both the U.S. Army and the Marine Corps ELOs show their enthusiasm for assisting the Transformers franchise. For Transformers 2, Revenge of the Fallen, they had held a joint planning meeting with the producers to discuss the military's role in the sequel while the script was still in development. Likewise, they provided script assistance throughout the development process for Transformers Dark of the Moon, recording how Bay was very receptive to our notes and expressed his desire for us to, quote unquote, help him make it better. Just goes back to what you said. Yeah. He in of it itself was looking and was advocating for them to say, hey, please make me, I want to make this more fascist. I want to make this more imperialistic. I want to make this more American. You know, I want people to when aliens come down, you know, or these fucking robots, from space come, they're fucking gung-ho, for the military, ready to go, and aren't going to question anything that they do, even to us. We're never going to question what they do to us. These are this is how they use films to try and justify these means of control, of complete control, of manipulation, of trying to justify a whole military force that has over 1,000 military bases that are the direct cause, and one of the direct causes, I should say, because there's many direct causes, one of the direct causes to the reason why we have fucking climate change. Why our fucking waters are polluted, why our airways are polluted. They have literally dropped what Vijay Prashad has estimated a total of, I think it was 4, what would be equivalent to 4 Nagasaki and Hiroshima bombs on Gaza.
Yep.
That is wild. And to know that they use movies to try and justify that, to say, hey, and not even understand. And then the fact that they're going against international law using white phosphorus.
Right.
I mean, everything they're doing is against international law.
Right.
But white phosphorus bombs. These are things that fucking Nazis use.
Well, hiding in fucking humanitarian trucks,
Yeah, hiding in humanitarian trucks recently and then killing 3 of their hostages to save 4, and then killing almost 300 fucking people. The number keeps going up. Over 300 people have died because of that quote unquote operation, and it was then hiding in military aid trucks. Talk about fucking Troy, the movie Troy.
Yeah.
So again, would you like to take over the reading?
Okay, so we're at
reports from
a few weeks into pre-production. The Army did a meeting between Paramount Pictures, Worldwide Marketing Partnerships, and the U.S. Army Accessions Command, advertising agency, McCann Worldwide. The fact that the U.S. Army has an advertising agency is fucking dystopic as shit. Like, it's so fucking
psychotic.
insane.
It's fucking psychotic.
It's psychotic, right? It's psychotic. And I remember during the NBA playoffs, to take a side, they had a commercial for the Air Force, right? And it was called, and in the commercial, it's like, "We own the skies," and like was their selling point. Like, and the idea behind that, like, if you really like take a second, because most people just digest it and move on, right? But if you really sit with that for a second, they're claiming to own the skies. The U.S. Air Force is. That's fucking bonkers.
Yeah, mapping out square footage in complete fucking air. It goes, and this is funny. The movie The Lorax essentially kind of made fun of, and also too, Dr. Seuss played blackface, by the way. Anybody who didn't know that, Dr. Seuss, the Cat in the Hat, he played Cat in the Hat, and he did blackface for many years for the Macy's parade. A lot of people don't fucking, it just goes across them. But the movie The Lorax, there's this guy named O'Hare. He's O'Hare Air, and someone sent me a message. They were laughing because I did the "Let it die, let it die, let it shrivel up and die." But he is a complete representation of oligarchical elites that will even go to the means of saying, "Hey, I'm going to deplete the world of all of its trees, and now I own all the air too. So when they need air, in order to live, we're going to bottle it all up like water bottles, and we're going to transport it around, and now I make money off of air."
Well, that's the whole point. That's the whole plot of Spaceballs, right?
Yeah.
Is that they fucking completely destroyed their planet, so they're looking for another planet to steal all their natural resources from.
All our natural resources
with a giant fucking made-like vacuum that they're just gonna suck all their fucking air out of.
Like all the fucking air, everybody, the dirt, all the fucking water, everything is just gonna so cartoonish, by the way, too.
Right. But it's not, it's a satiric representation of what's actually happening, right?
Yeah.
And Yeah. So, but anyways, I just wanted to point out how fucking insane it is. And I need to stop using the word insane because somebody's going to talk to me about sanish language. And I'm very sorry. I do try very hard to not use that kind of terminology, but sometimes I slip into it, and I apologize. Just know that I know that it's a thing, and I am working on it. It's something that I do acknowledge about myself, and I do see. But yeah, this is batshit. So we'll put it there because I don't think that there's any really negative connotations to the word batshit.
No.
So
Where did we leave off at?
it's complete batshit that the U.S. Army has an advertising agency. So we're at the purpose was to discuss opportunities for the U.S. Army to leverage the success of the Transformers franchise, noting how the second film was the most commercially successful of 2009. The DoD saw the third installment as an opportunity to showcase the bravery and values of our soldiers and the excellent technology of today's Army to a global audience in an apolitical blockbuster. Which makes it not an apolitical blockbuster at all, but makes it very much a thing of very political.
Very, very, very propagandized.
Yes.
It says right here, the first Transformers film received a record amount of aid from the military, featuring 12 types of Air Force aircrafts and troops from 4 different bases. A base military wish list for the second film ran over 50 items, each item being access to a location or use of vehicles or military extras, which estimated a cost of over $600,000. So mind you, while that number right there is a part of a number that we as taxpayers have to pay.
Yes.
Because while we're paying for Michael Bay to have over 50 items for him to make this movie, we have people out on the street that need food. We have people who don't have a house. We have people who can barely afford to live in the house that they are living in, i.e. me.
Sorry, I don't
we have individuals. It's a laughable moment because you see the irony. You see the fucking irony in it all. You know, it's like what Tupac says, they got money for war, but can't feed the poor. You know?
Yep.
All of this $600,000, you break that shit up. That's 600,000 people in the United States that could have had at least $1,000 that could have went towards fucking food
or shelter
or shelter, or could have helped pay fucking student debt off. You know, whatever. Well, no, I highly advise people to stop paying their student debt because it goes right back into the hands of the people. So that was wrong with me right
in
there.
Minecraft.
It is disgusting to know that we have $600,000 to give to Michael Bay so that he could have his helicopters, his aircraft carriers, he could have his fucking, his fucking F-35 fighter fucking jets, which are the same fucking jets that are bombing fucking Gaza right now off the fucking coast, supplied via the U.S. Army. It's disgusting.
Yep.
That's where it goes to. It says right here, to borrow a phrase from the Pentagon, this investment was force multiplied by the inclusion of technology such as $150 million F-22 fighters, which had never appeared on screen prior to the first Transformers movie. Who else but the Pentagon's high command could provide $1 billion worth of unique vehicles and shooting locations, along with trained and an uninformed uniform extras, all for only a few $100,000. A producer, Ian Bryce, put it, "We would never have been able to make this movie without the willingness of the Department of Justice to embrace this project." Again, they only embraced it because what it did is it embraced militarization, it embraced imperialism, it embraced upholding the aesthetics of white hegemony, it embraced everything that is detrimental to our existence. Everything that is detrimental to it. So that means bombing places, which we know is detrimental to our ecosystem. It is ecocide. They're aiders and abettors of ecocide, and they went and they spent $600,000 of our taxpayers' dollars that we have to every year give, so that they can make a movie that they're gonna run down our fucking throats, and we're gonna enjoy it because it has visual effects. because it's a movie about robots, and we're going to ignore the fact that in the midst of all of these conversation and militarization and whatnot, they're upholding these values. They're telling you that this is okay, and they're trying to manipulate you into believing that some shit like this is going to happen, and we're going to need guys that are fucking that are strong and fucking these corn-fed ass white boys, with their fucking guns and AR-18s and shit. We're going to need them to save the fucking day. That is white savior trope. When we align with the values of white hegemony, what we are aligning with is, again, the white savior trope, that the white society is going to save us. White government systems is going to save us. And they're not. They're not saving us now. They're fucking killing us. Killing us slowly but fucking surely. Killing me softly, in the words of fucking Lauryn Hill.
Right. Well, and I think also like that Americans' perceived sacrifices in the areas of homelessness and food deprivation and all that stuff is a sacrifice that's worth it at the end, because we have these people to protect us in the inevitable machine uprising, right? And that's kind of the underlying thing that's not said, but is said throughout these movies, right? Is that, all of these things that you do to sacrifice for America to be America, or for the United States to be the United States, is worth it in the end, because when the time comes that the machines come from fucking whatever planet they came from, that, we're going to have people to stop them.
And what it gets them to distract on how they built that ability to have that might and that power. It comes through the form of extraction. It comes through the form of imperialization. When you go and you steal someone else's resources, it makes it far more easier for you to create guns. It makes it far more easier for you to create explosives. Makes it far more easier for you to fucking create bullshit ass fucking automotive vehicles. It makes it completely easier for them to do what? Again, what we're outlining is that manipulating us through media and getting us to believe that Transformers was a movie that had no military expertise in, when in all actuality they were actively asking our government system, while knowing that there's people out on the street. Again, this is Hollywood, so they know they know the life of Hollywood. It's either you fake it till you make it, or you make it and you don't, or you don't make it.
Yep.
And it's also built it's built off the backs of the likes of individuals that you wouldn't even have known of, that are not white.
Cybertron. That's the fucking that's their planet. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. Cybertron, no, you're good.
It was bothering me.
But getting people, that's the neurodivergent.
Yeah. But no, your points are all valid, and I was listening to all of them.
That's funny.
You are 100% on point with all of that, and that's why we're here, and that's why we're doing this.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think we could, or did we finish off this page right here?
No.
Okay, right here.
We're still at the Pentagon's.
The Pentagon's influence on Transformers extended into the productions phase. During the shooting of one of the scenes in the first movie where American troops have been attacked by the Decepticons, John Wright playing the John Voight playing the Secretary of Defense approached Bay to tell him that the scene needed an extra line. Voight, what did I say earlier in this? If we need an extra line, we're gonna need you to put this line in there, because we just gave you $600,000 of the people's money so that you could manipulate them for us.
Right.
Says right here, Voight felt that he needed to quote express his concerns for the troops' safety. So Voight, Bay, and Strub and others went into a huddle. Look, bunch of brainstorming how they're gonna manipulate fucking society. Strub suggested bring them home, and murmurs an agreement moved through the circle. The line appears in the finished movie, followed by a shot of quote approaching helicopter with soldiers silhouetted against swirling red dust. I don't know how that I mean, maybe I don't know how that correlated into
It's just because Bay's famous for his slow motion
okay, the
right?
slow caption
And
silhouette.
so the helicopter showing up slowly, swirling up dust, and it's supposed to be, and it's like hyper cinematic, but it's also hyper like patriotic because you see the helicopter coming down and the troops in the helicopter, and the Secretary of Defense really cares about the boys. When we know the one thing that the Secretary of Defense doesn't ever give a fuck about is them boys.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It says right here, of course, despite the claims to contrary, or first up here, the above photo is quote, bring them home, but only so we can regroup before taking our revenge. Says, of course, despite the claims to the contrary, the Transformers franchise is not apolitical. While the first, and let me reiterate that again, they're not apolitical. They are all out fucking political. They're working and corresponding with the Department of Justice to make movies, i.e., the movies now that we see that are coming out. That they came out. Bumblebee, the latest Transformers movie, that came out where they have the all representation. Everybody's recognized in this movie. While in the first film, almost all the actions happen within the U.S. In the second and the third installments, the fighting takes place all over the world. Despite this, it is only the American and to a lesser extent the British military who are joining forces with the Autobots to defeat the evil Decepticons, including during a mission in Shanghai. It does so with astounding weapons in a display of what is often called a war pornography. Let me highlight that. It says right here, the implicit message is that we should be thrilled that only the Pentagon is up to the task to fighting a global war against an external threat. Plus, of course, we are to trust in officialdom to quote bring them home. I think we can probably end right here. Since it goes into keys to prevention. Like they bring up, he brings up, like the British and Americans are, on the side of the Autobots, and I can even go as further is I believe in the first movie or the second movie, they had the Decepticons like what looked to seem like they were working with what would be like jihad or ISIS or like working with what would said to be Middle Eastern factions, and so that I mean they didn't put that in there. I don't think they missed that like intentionally.
Right.
But I do want to highlight that's exactly as a kid I'm watching that the Decepticons are being hidden by what would be like an ISIS or a faction, a Middle Eastern faction, and America and Britain comes in is like with Autobots, and it's textbook fucking racism. It's textbook racism to me when they do shit like this, when they put American and British or any of these colonial aesthetics into these movies and try and make us feel like they're needed or they're justified, and they're not. So that would be my closing argument or closing analysis of what we just read. Again, this is National Security Cinema by Matthew Alford and Tom Secker, for which they uncovered just a small smidge of what the Department of Justice has been able to get their hands on and get our taxpayers to pay for, or our tax dollars to pay for. So yeah,
I would think like our goal here is to help people one, see the things that we actually know to be the case of military involvement in our mass media, but also use critical thinking skills to apply this to the things that you're watching now and the stuff that we're doing with our show Decolonial Parallels, where we are
tune in Wednesday for Acolyte episode 3, a review. It'll be at 8 a.m. my time, Pacific Standard Time, 10 a.m. Ryan Standard Time, and we're gonna be going into this show because I listed the show, labeled it, and got a message. Someone was like, "What the fuck is this?" But I said that the Jedi are equivalent to the FBI in this
Right.
show. The
Yeah, I saw
Jedi
that.
Knights, so
No, and I think that that's good, and that's kind of what we're trying to get people to understand, is that all of these things that we enjoy, all of these universes that were created for our pleasure, right? We're all created underneath a colonial construct, and they have to be viewed as such. And until we're able to look at those things in the manner that they're meant to be. And this book helps with that, is why we're decided to do this book first. I think this book really helps, because once you see the inner workings of how the DoD is intertwined with Hollywood, then it makes all of these other things, intentional and unintentional, make a lot more sense. And so I'm really happy to be taking this journey with you, man. And I think this is going to be really cool.
Yeah, and I was just thinking right now too, just to kind of throw it out there, this first episode I'm gonna post on YouTube in totality, and the second episode that we do will be on Patreon, and a clip will be posted. So that way, I felt like it would be disingenuous to just abruptly go and like, hey, this is a clip, you want to read more? Like, I just don't want to do that to
Sure.
To the viewers. This is an hour and 10 minutes of all out, I feel, good content.
Yep.
That could be, used, that's not live based, and we go in depth. There's a lot of stuff in here that's highlighted. And so again, thank you guys for tuning in. When you do see this, as I'm speaking to nobody right now,
Right.
as we record this, this was fun. I'm being honest with you.
Yeah.
I think we should do more of these book readings, and I would like to translate them to Twitter Spaces in hopes that we can have more interaction with individuals, and in how I stated, we can get that more of that old aesthetic that I'm hoping I can acquire my within my own group of individuals that I speak to now, that I compared to 2 years ago. Getting back to Twitter Spaces and doing this shit again,
Well, that's up to you. That's your thing.
Yeah, that's my.
I don't fuck with Twitter, so like you won't catch me on there. That's just my own personal thing. I don't begrudge anybody who is. I got the boot from it and was just like, you know what, this is actually awesome. Not being in that shithole. And so like I would like to keep myself out of there. But I hold no grudges to anyone who does, fight the fight wherever you can.
Yeah, like my comrade, the pen and the paper, who is also she's been a guest on the show multiple times, or on the network multiple times, does reading spaces there. So I'm in a sense trying to do the same thing, but I can't. I to be honest with you, Penn does it way better than me and has way more of a grip on it, so maybe I could just
maybe just plug her stuff.
I could just plug her stuff and keep it and keep this on YouTube and on Patreon. So again,
if I could just talk to the audience, whoever is still paying attention and watching, like, go check out my man's Patreon, go check out his Substack, please.
Thank you.
Go check him out, and don't be afraid to donate to the show, because every dollar that you donate to us helps him, and we appreciate it, man. We really, really do.
And I appreciate you, man, for doing that. I appreciate you for doing that. Again, this was fun. To the viewers, I want to say thank you for tuning in, for being a part of the show, for this reading. And we will see you guys in the next one. Again, all of this will be available on YouTube to view. And the second one, I will cut it in half, and you'll have to watch the other half of that second episode. You'll have to watch half on YouTube. If you want to watch the full one, you can go to Patreon. And so again, for those that are at the end of this video, here is a link that you can click that goes directly to my Patreon for you guys to help out and whatnot. Just keep this network afloat. So again, thank you guys. And we will see you guys in the next one.
Later.